Yeah. All right. We'll do our next redraft. So this week we're up to 2010. So we're going to be redrafting the 2010 draft. Another tough one. The players are getting pretty old. We're getting into the dinosaur ages with these ones, but
not sure how many more we can do.
Yeah. I mean, I want to get to 2006 just so I can show a bit of love to the Port lads. But you can go first, mate. Kick us off. Have you got honourable mentions or just top 10?
I do have honourable mentions, so I'll list them off first very quickly. So I've got the number one draft pick from that year in there, David Swallow. There are some very quality names in here. Tom McDonald, Paul Seedsman, Brodie Smith, Jamie Cripps, Jeremy Howe. They're the honourable mentions I've got written down. At number 10, I'm going to kick us off with Jared Lyons, whose career didn't really go off to a great start. It's only really what he's done at Brisbane, which has been huge for them. And he's very much one of the reasons why they're now obviously been, premiership contenders for the last few years. It hasn't just been Lachie Neale in that midfield. Lyons has been doing a lot of the bulk work in there. If you take him out of that midfield, it's actually a bigger hole than I think people realise to fill. And because, he's just the standard 25 touches, truckload of tackles. So, yeah, if you take him out of there, all the pressure goes to Neale, and there's no one else really you could throw in there that you can properly rely on, I don't think. So while he is only really in there based on what he's done at Brisbane, I still think it's worthy enough because I think I'm also going to factor in the next few years. I think he'll obviously probably be the same player for the next couple of years, and while Brisbane are going for that premiership, so I think if we count for the next 2 years coming up, he's going to have one of the biggest impacts out of all these guys on this list. So at number 9, I've got Cam Guthrie, obviously probably having a career best year, but he's just been a soldier for the whole time he's been at Geelong. Doesn't have like a big resume or anything. He's barely got anything on it, but he's just been a quality player for this long. We all know that. So, to be a mainstay in a Geelong lineup for over 10 years, that's definitely worthy of a spot on this list. At number 8, I've got Tom Libratore, obviously a premiership winner. Got a few more on the resume for him, but obviously hasn't been like a standout star midfielder. He's been, very good and excels in some parts of the game that lots of people sometimes don't tend to recognise. You can sometimes walk away from a game thinking, yeah, Libba played all right, but you look at his stats, he's actually really good. He's a contested beast in there, but often overshadowed by the likes of Bont and McRae. Has probably hurt his ability to finish, really high up in predominantly club awards as well as, Brownlow medals. So probably, finishing up high in the Brownlow tally. But yeah, he's still a mainstay in that Dogs 22. And, we know the quality of that team, especially its midfield. So to be in there is definitely worthy of being on this list as well. And then number 7, I've got 3-time premiership player Isaac Smith. That's about the only thing, he's really got going apart from the fact that, he's been one of the legend wingmen of the game. So he's been huge for the Hawks, and he's obviously, proving to be a very vital player for the Cats as well. They obviously lacked a bit of speed, a bit of ball use, the Cats, I think, last year and probably the start of this year when they were playing that sort of slow, boring style of footy. So I think Smith's really helped them there. So he's finishing off his career nicely. He's not sort of, he's not sort of turning over and just, limping to the end of his career. He's having a really, really strong impact. So that's the reason why I've got him this high. But yeah, obviously contributed to those 3 premierships at the Hawks. So he's definitely worthy to be in here. Number 6, Dion Prestia, another 3-time premiership player. He's been a very solid player for Gold Coast and then for Richmond coming over. He's finished pretty high up in most best and fairest seasons when he's been fit. And he's probably, he's an all-Australian quality player, but, it's been hard for him to get in there just mainly because his body just doesn't hold up. But when feeling, he's a very solid player in there. At number 5, Dawson Heppel. He's probably one of those players that has come to the end of his career a little bit. He's not having the same impact as he once used to have. I think lots of these guys on here are still having a similar impact. Would have dipped a little. Heppel's obviously gone down a lot, but it's also because of that role change. He's gone to half-back to let that excellent midfield that the Bombers have got going for them. But it's still a very vital role for the Bombers there. He provides a lot of leadership down there and just around the club as well. you often forget how good of a player Dawson Heppel was. He's an absolute animal for Essendon back in the day in the midfield with the flowing dreadlocks. He's got a lot more on the resume than I first thought when I had a look at it. So yeah, he's definitely worthy of a top 5 pick here. Number 4, I've got Jack Darling for West Coast. Obviously being a huge player for them alongside Kennedy. We always talk about how important tall forwards are, and that's one of the reasons why he's this high up. Obviously, 2018 premiership as well nearly costed them in the last sort of minute or two when he dropped that sitter in front of the goals. But no, he's been a very important player for them, and without him, most of the focus is on Kennedy, and not sure how far they would have gone with them with just him by himself. And number 3, we've got another Eagle in Andrew Gaff. Obviously, been a quality wingman for so many years now. A couple of All Australians. You just know what you're going to get from him. He can easily rack up 30 touches. I know they're pretty cheap, but you've got to respect someone that can put in all the hard yards as he can. He can run all day. And like I said, he played 22 games for you every season. So he's been an absolutely quality player for them. A lot of high finishes, in their best and fairest. And yeah, like I said, he's been an absolute mainstay in such a successful Eagles outfit for so many years. Number 2, I've got your super coach non-favourite, Luke Parker. He's obviously been an absolute animal for the Swans for so many years now. Such a gun to watch. He's obviously slowly coming to the end of his career and, letting the young boys start to have a bit more of an impact, but he's been so good for them over the years. Obviously BNFs, All Australians, really high finishes in BNFs when he hasn't won them, and just an absolute leader around the club. So he's been one of the picks of this draft. I think it was late. I think it was sort of around the 40s. So that was an absolute steal. But number 1 has got to go. One of my least favourite players in Tom Lynch, but unfortunately I can't pass it up. He's not only the best tall forward in this draft, but he's probably the best player. He's got a really good resume. He's obviously playing a couple of premierships now. I think he's got a Coleman medal in him and a couple of All Australians. It's just I know he's probably had better days when he was at Gold Coast. I he used to kick a few bags of 6 and stuff, but at the moment, he's probably kicking a few. But yeah, the bags come a little bit less often for him now. But at the same time, he's contributed to 2 premierships, and he's still been a very, very, very good player for Gold Coast and Richmond over the years. We know how important tall forwards are, and he's carried Gold Coast team for so long in terms of converting goals. And he's doing the same at Richmond now alongside Jack, so that's been very handy for them. So to have that 2-pronged attack in Richmond has just made them unstoppable for those couple of years, and was probably worthy of this number 1 spot just because of how important the tall forwards are. A lot harder to come by. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to round it off with Tom Lynch because, I think he's just got to be number 1 for me.
Yep, fair enough. My list is pretty similar. I've got one change in that Jared Lyons was my 11th man, and I went with Jeremy Howe. That was a toss-up, but I just think Howe's been an elite player in his position for a number of years. So, yeah, that was a tough one. But yeah, so I've got Jeremy Howe at number 10. Great defender, loves a hanger. Has had trouble with injuries. Would potentially be higher on the list if he hadn't, but either way, he's a gun. And I think is he coming back this week? Or is that just complete bullshit?
I'm not 100% sure.
I swear I saw something about his return, but that could be wrong.
If I was Collingwood, I'd probably rest him until next year, but each their own.
You'd think so. Number 9, Cam Guthrie. He's kind of similar to Jared Lyons, just being a role player, probably a little bit better in a better team. But the last 2 seasons, he's absolutely broken out and became an absolute weapon, All-Australian last season. And I'm sure he'll have a number more elite years ahead of him. Number 8, Dion Prestia. I think he's kind of overrated just because of his premierships. I just think there's a lot of other midfielders that are better than him on this list. He has struggled with injuries as well, which is a bit stiff. But number 7, I've actually gone Andrew Gaff. I've just given the nod basically to the inside midfielders over the wingman in this case, and I don't like him because of what he did to Brayshaw, but can't judge his ability on that. But yeah, he's obviously a gun, as you said, been one of the most consistent players for like the last 6 years. Number 6, Dyson Heppel, extremely underrated, was a gun midfielder for like 4 years in a row and would have been 5 if he didn't have to miss 2015 or whatever, 2013 or whatever it was because of that saga. But yeah, underrated gun, and his body's probably worn down a bit over the last couple of years, which is why he's moved to half back. But he's still a weapon and one of their best players. Number 5, I've actually gone Libba. I just think what he brings to the table is really unique and not many players out there can do it. He's just an absolute clearance beast and an underrated player because of that. We've seen when you take him out of the Dogs midfield, they struggle with the clearances, especially considering they don't have a good ruckman. So he's been a key component there and obviously won a premiership. Number 4, Jack Darling. I rate him quite highly. He's got an All-Australian as well, key forward, so he's got to be right up there. And then 3, I've gone Isaac Smith. This is purely because of his team accolades. I mean, he has been a gun wingman for like 10 years, but he's like a better version of Brad Hill. But 3 flags in a row. Not much more you can ask for. Number 2, I've actually swapped him. I've gone Lynch at 2. He's arguably more valuable than Parker, but I don't know. Luke Parker's just been an absolute gun for them. He's won a flag, numerous best and fairest, just gun midfielder who can impact the scoreboard as well, which not many other midfielders can do for like the last 8 to 9 years. So I think he's deserving of the number 1 spot. But yeah, overall, pretty good draft class, to be honest. Yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, very solid. It was very solid around the board. I think the honourable mentions were very stiff not to get in there. Look at the likes of, like I said, Tom McDonald, Paul Seedsman, Brodie Smith, Jamie Cripps. Cripps is obviously a premiership player in there, and all the others have been very close to it as well. I think they've all played in grand finals, except for T-Mac, but he's played in the prelim. That one was a very tough one. It's very even across the board, but yeah, I agree with you on the Parker one. Could definitely have him at 1. He's been an absolute beast for him.
Yeah, no, I had a soft spot for him as well as a Swans man, and I love the way he goes about it. And as you said, we all hate Tom Lynch, so he can take a back seat in my rankings. But yeah,
it's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.